Okay, welcome everyone to ANC 34G's special meeting tonight. This is a special meeting to address the Maret application at the BZA, as we have done several times before. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of the commission. I represent ANC 34G03, and that single member district includes the area basically between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. And we're glad to have everyone here tonight. We'll introduce the other commissioners then. Chaz, you want to begin?
Sure. My name is Chaz Cadwell. I'm the commissioner from 34G07, which is on the southwest part of our territory between Reno, Nebraska, military, and sort of a triangle, I suppose.
Michael?
Michael Zeldin, I'm 3G04, which is Lafayette there over to Western and bounded between one side of Broad Branch and one side of Utah.
And Peter.
I'm Peter Gosselin. I represent District 6, which is the west side of Connecticut Avenue back to 41st. From the Maryland, or Western Avenue border with Maryland, and the Chevy Chase Circle to military with the peninsula to the east. Welcome.
Connie.
Good evening. I'm Commissioner Connie Chang, and I am the representative for single member district number 5, which starts at Chase Bank at Legation, going up Connecticut on the east side to Western, then it hooks around on Broad Branch Road and back to Legation, and then with the little tail to Jocelyn between Nevada Avenue and Chevy Chase Parkway. Okay, good evening. Good to be here.
And finally, John.
Hello, I'm John Higgins. I'm the commissioner for single member district 02, which basically north to south is military to Aberfoyle, and east to west is Oregon to Utah.
Okay, we have 6 commissioners here, which is more than a quorum. A quorum is 4, and so we can conduct business tonight. As we've done for 2 years, almost 2 years, we're meeting virtually, and we want to have community participation, and we will have it tonight. But we'll begin with just the commissioners, who will have audio and video. And as we get to the section when we're going to ask for comments from the community, we'll make individual attendees panelists so that they will have audio and video as well. I'll describe the procedures that we're going to use on that in more detail a little bit later. If it would really help us too, if you would rename yourself on the list of participants to make sure you've got the correct name, full name, so that we will know who you are and we could recognize you that way. And also, when you speak, if you could be sure to tell us what your name is, and it would be helpful to have your address or where you live in the district. As we've always done in our meetings, we use the chat for comments. And so anyone who has any comments during the meeting, please put them in the chat. And if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. That way we can see them more easily. We will, at the end of the meeting, we'll make copies of both the Q&A and the chat, and those will be put on our website. In addition, we are recording the meeting tonight, as we do all of our meetings, and that will be on the ANC's YouTube page probably sometime tomorrow. We rely on Commissioner Gosselin to do a fabulous job for getting that up for everyone, and we really appreciate that. Okay, this is a special meeting of the ANC, and there are a couple of things that we have to keep in mind about that. It has a limited purpose, and that's for hearing from the community about the commission's draft resolution and proposed conditions, and for the commission to discuss among themselves that proposed resolution and conditions. This is for Maret's proposal to build the sports field at the Episcopal Center for Children, and we'll describe all of that in much more detail a little bit later. Under our bylaws, no other topics may be added to this meeting except by unanimous consent of the commissioners at the beginning of the meeting. So the first thing we'll do today is adopt our agenda, which has been published on our website and on various listservs and Nextdoor. Are there, first of all, any amendments that any of the commissioners want to make to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote on it. I move that we adopt the agenda. All those in favor? 6-0. Okay. All right. We're going to have a few introductory sections here that John Higgins and I are going to talk about. John and I have been working together on this project with regard to Maret's application before the BZA. And we'll begin with some background information about the application and the efforts that the commission has made with regard to that. And then I will describe some of the procedures we're going to follow for tonight. John, you want to begin?
Okay, thanks, Randy. Our goal tonight is to provide the opportunity for the commissioners to discuss the ANC's proposed resolution and statement of conditions related to the proposal to convert the property at Episcopal Center for Children, ECC, on Nebraska Avenue to a sports field. ECC and Maret School have reached an agreement whereby Maret will lease the property and undertake the conversion project. Maret has applied to the DC Board of Zoning Adjustment, the BZA, to obtain permission to alter the field based on the DC residential zoning law exemption provided for educational organizations. Sorry. This proposal has generated significant interest in the community, including concerns about the zoning exemption being sought by the partners. The BZA process will also involve assessments of the project by other DC agencies. Briefly, the Episcopal Children's Center is committed to its mission to provide educational and child development assistance to children with significant special ed needs. The center paused its operation as a result of COVID, overlaid with a deficiency in funding. The leasing agreement with Maret will provide an opportunity for ECC to resume its mission to assist special needs children, and it will also provide Maret the opportunity to have the facilities it needs to provide an athletic experience, which is integral to its curriculum. Issues of interest and concern include hydrology and stormwater management, traffic intensity, noise impacts, other aesthetic concerns, and perceptions that such a facility simply is inappropriate in a residential setting. By law, the ANC is authorized to contribute to regulatory proceedings such as that being conducted by the BZA in this case. Tonight's meeting is the last of 3 ANC special meetings and is being conducted in preparation for the ANC's final submission to the BZA on this project. Tonight's meeting is an informational forum for commissioners to discuss the proposal, present their views on the resolution and conditions, and provide the opportunity for public comment on its draft. The commission has also received comments from interested parties. The commission may decide to vote tonight or to consider comments on the draft and modify the draft accordingly for a final vote at a regular meeting. At this point, and Randy will take over with the procedures.
Thanks, John. As John mentioned, this is the third of our special meetings that we've held on the Maret application. The first of those was presentations by each of the parties, Maret, the Episcopal Center for Children, and by the group Friends of the Field, which has been recognized as a party at the BZA proceeding in opposition to the application. The second meeting was with a number of DC agencies who are responsible for reviewing various aspects of the application from Maret, with DDOT, first of all, to look at the comprehensive transportation review. Then we had the Urban Forestry Division of DDOT to talk about the tree transplant program and their plans for preservation of existing heritage trees. And then we had a written presentation, a written statement from the Department of Energy and Environment about stormwater management. Tonight's meeting is focused on the proposed resolution and conditions, which represent the culmination of many months of work. We've posted these, the draft resolution and the proposed conditions on our website on Sunday evening, and we posted it on various listservs and Nextdoor and various social media as well. So our purpose tonight is to consider what the commission will advise the BZA about Maret's application. We've allotted about 40 minutes in the agenda for the commissioners discussion. But we may not use all of that time since the draft resolution really speaks for itself. We assume that the attendees have reviewed the draft resolution that has been posted on our website. After the commissioners have discussed the resolution, we'll go to the attendees' comments and questions. We expect that there will be a number of attendees who will want to speak, and so we'll have to limit the time that each speaker will get. We'll start off expecting it's only going to be about 2 minutes. We might be able to extend that to 3 minutes, depending on how many people want to participate. We've got about 65 participants who are on the webinar now. We'll keep track of the time, and I'll have my phone in my block on the webinar so you can see how much time's expired, and we'll keep close tabs on that and make sure everyone abides by those time limits, because we do want to get as many people in to speak as possible. In order to be recognized, we ask that attendees wishing to speak will raise their hands at that appropriate time. You don't need to raise your hand now, but when we get to that point where we're going to hear from the attendees, you can raise your hand, and then we'll elevate attendees to panelists with audio and video in groups of about 5. And we ask you not to repeat points that have already been made by other speakers. We also ask that the attendees limit their questions and comments to the 4 corners of the resolution and the conditions. We have really literally dozens and dozens of letters and emails from people on both sides expressing their reasons for opposing or supporting the project. So it's not necessary to repeat any of the general statements at this meeting. At 3 o'clock today, we also received from the Friends of the Field an email with an 8-page written submission addressing the draft resolution, along with 6 exhibits, most of which have been submitted to the commission previously. The commissioners will review and consider these submissions along with others before finalizing the resolution. It's not necessary to repeat the points in the submission in tonight's meeting. What will really help the commissioners is clear, concise comments or questions about specific paragraphs in the draft resolution and proposed conditions. We won't be counting the number of supporters and opponents to see who has the most speakers. So don't feel like you have to speak up for your side so that you will have a larger tally. That's not going to be helpful for the commission. We also welcome comments in the chat, which, as I said at the beginning, we will keep a copy of that and we'll review it. And it will be posted on our website afterwards as well. As usual, again, we will take questions in the Q&A, and in responding to questions, we will again stick to the 4 corners of the resolution and conditions and will not get into extraneous issues. In order for the commission to consider the comments tonight, we do not expect that we can take a vote for a final resolution at this meeting. We received at 3 o'clock this afternoon the submission from the Friends of the Field. So I think it's very unlikely that we'll be able to take a vote tonight on our proposed resolution and conditions. We plan to take all of the comments into account and to prepare a revised final draft that will again point to our website and be posted on our website on the listserv and next door. By the way, we have also already posted the Friends submission that we got at 3 o'clock this afternoon. It's already on our website with the exhibits, if you want to look at it there. We also need to make some adjustments and updates in our draft resolution, because we have a long section on the background and what's happened. And there have been a couple of things that have happened since we drafted that. There have been 2 town hall meetings that the Friends of the Field held that John Higgins and I both attended. And then there was a decision today by the Public Space Committee about the curb cut application, and we'll want to include that as well in our background section. We are under a very tight schedule set by the BZA, however. The commission must submit its resolution at least a week before the hearing, which is scheduled for March 9th. That means we have to submit it by March 2nd. Thus, we will add the vote on this final resolution to our agenda for the commission's regular meeting on February 28th, next Monday. Of course, anyone can also express their views directly to the BZA through March 8th by sending an email to bzasubmissions@dc.gov. And you can also sign up to testify at the March 9th hearing on the BZA website. Okay, John, anything else you want to add about the procedures or we're going to follow?
No, I think you've got it. Taken care of.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda then is a description of the draft resolution. And as I said, I suspect most of you have at least had a chance to look through that. I hope you have. This resolution is a product of an extensive process by the commission to understand Maret's application, the concerns that have been raised, and the impacts of proceeding with the proposed sports field on all of the affected parties. The background portion of the draft resolution, which I mentioned a minute ago, is paragraphs 1 through 15, and it describes all of the steps that the commission has taken to review this application and to hear from the community. Commissioners, especially Commissioner Higgins and I, have spent literally hundreds of hours on this process. I would call your attention to paragraph 17 in the draft resolution, which describes the basis for the commission's analysis. We say that while the immediate neighbors have a significant interest in the project's impact on them, theirs is not the only interest that the commission must consider. The commission has an obligation to weigh all the impacts on the community. Indeed, each commissioner took an oath to exercise my best judgment and consider each matter before me from the standpoint of the best interests of the District of Columbia as a whole. And I think all of us take that oath very seriously. Beginning in paragraph 18, the draft resolution analyzes and reaches conclusions about a number of specific topics. The long-term financial stability that this project provides for ECC, permitting it to resume its educational mission. The plan for both the multipurpose field and a baseball field rather than a single multipurpose field. The extent to which the fields will be used by Maret, its lessees, and the community. The management of stormwater. The management of traffic and its impact on pedestrians and bicyclists. The plans to preserve or transplant heritage trees. The noise expected as a result of the project. The use of turf rather than a grass field. And finally, the disruption that's caused by construction of the field, that initial stage of the project. Finally, the draft resolution attaches 21 pages of conditions that cover the broad range of topics related to the project. The first is the design of the project, including details such as removal of goalposts, the security fencing, the protective netting, landscaping, tree relocation, stormwater mitigation, the type of turf field that will be used, and the type and location of bleachers, and a permeable material for the parking lot and the sidewalk. The second big area that's covered in the conditions is lighting of the parking lot, the description of the scoreboard, and noise abatement. The third area is the use and access of the fields, including which hours are permitted for each type of use. The fourth area is transportation and parking. The fifth area of conditions is the management of construction-related impacts. The sixth area is how disputes are resolved about the conditions. And number 7, the duration of the conditions. So that summarizes very, very briefly the draft resolution and the proposed conditions. And now we're going to begin with just a general discussion by the commissioners. First of all, do any commissioners have anything they would like to add in terms of the summary of the draft resolution and proposed conditions?
No.
None? Okay, I'll open it to the commissioners to ask questions, to make comments, to indicate why they agree or don't agree with the draft resolution. Connie?
I just wanted to make one point, which is that this draft resolution and the proposed conditions were looked at by all of us before we posted it on the website. So it's not just from Commissioner Speck and Commissioner Higgins. I just wanted to make that clear, that we all have had a chance to look at it.
And more than just look at it, I think you've done
Correct.
a very thorough job of editing it too.
Yes, we did. We went through several rounds.
I think the better way to state it maybe, Connie, is that, unless I'm stating this wrong, tell me.
Yeah.
All the commissions have reviewed, edited, commented on, and now agreed to the draft resolution and conditions.
Yes. Michael, you
there's
said
no-
it better than I.
There's no debate among us other than that we support those draft resolution and those conditions. Our minds are not made up. That's why we're here today, and that's what we'll be doing before our vote on Monday. But that's the consensus of where we are at the moment, subject to further discussion.
I do want to point out as well that the commissioners have been involved in this process from the beginning. And we had our first meeting back in September when we heard not only from Maret and from ECC, but also extensively from the community at that meeting. And then John and I have endeavored, I hope successfully, to keep the commissioners abreast of everything that was going on, giving them notes of our meetings, notes of meetings we attended, all the drafts of things that we prepared, exchanges of emails, forwarding to them the comments that we received from the wide variety of supporters and opponents to the project. And so I think we've tried to keep all the commissioners abreast. They haven't been as involved on a day-to-day basis as John and I, but you've certainly been intimately involved with this project.
Yeah, and I think that because we knew from the start it was going to be a pretty big endeavor, we put together that dedicated webpage, which I have put in the chat so that people have the link. And I have really tried to put every document that we've received and any responses and so forth up on the web so that everyone has access to it. And I think that's important. The supporting letters and the opposing letters are all there. We initially posted it, then John got more. I mean, we all get them and then we all try to collate them together. And so there's two versions of that, and we will likely have a third one by the end of this weekend. We'll likely post it up again. So I just want to make that point that we have really tried. I mean, there have been lots of big projects that we've taken on since we started the newbies. Randy is an experienced commissioner, but all the rest of us are new since last year. And we've endeavored really hard on several projects, but this is one. And I just wanted to make sure that people understood that, even though Commissioner Speck and Commissioner Higgins have been sort of the front facing, all of us have been involved in one way or another.
Peter?
Well, I agree with what Connie and Michael said. I may not have reviewed this as closely as some of you. So I just wanted to ask a few questions under each of the headings in the resolution, starting with the ECC and the effect that this this proposal by Maret would have on the ECC. In paragraph 21, in paragraph 20, we speak to the issue of what the long-term lease of the field to Maret will do for ECC. Do we feel confident that the institution, the Episcopal Center, will reopen soon, and perhaps not at the level they were at before, but at a substantial level? The paragraph 21 makes I think, a very important point, which is that the field will not lay fallow for the indefinite future. If this proposal doesn't work, another one will come along. The ECC has made very clear this is its capital, and it intends to use it to try to get back into operation. But I'm just curious about, do we feel confident that ECC will open under the Maret leaves? I guess I addressed
So-
it, Randy and mostly Randy and John.
Okay, so I was going to say something about that. But
But okay, go ahead. I don't want to
Well,
censor any of
wait,
it.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
I
wait, just one thing, we have Stephanie Nash on
Yeah,
among the
but-
participants. Isn't it a question best asked of
No,
Stephanie?
but what I was going to say was I've asked that question in different forms because I wanted to have an understanding of what that operation will be. So my understanding is that in the past, it was like between 40 and 45 students that they were able to, maybe even close to 50 at one point, that they were taking care of. And when they ceased operations, to get back to the past sort of level of service, they're not going to be able to do that. But their goal is 20 to 25 students starting the fall of this year. And then the other question I asked, because Ms. Nash spoke about it, was the after-school program to benefit the broader community. And it seemed like their survey of the broader community looks like they would be able to help have some after-school programs for kids at Lafayette. That's about the same 20 to 25, which I assume that they're going to walk over like they do for other programs. So I'm sorry, John, you wanted to say something, but I've asked that question because I want to know. So we didn't say that though here in the draft resolution, what we heard. And we may want to add the specifics of what we heard in the draft resolution. I don't know if that's where you're driving at, Peter, just a little bit more detail. But,
I don't think I need more detail. I'm just curious about the sense of the commission having heard all this testimony. Besides these sessions in February, I mean, we've had lengthy sessions going back way into the fall. So I'm not asking for any change of the document. And does somebody, John, did you have a comment?
Yes, if you give me a minute, I have letters from Bill Simon and letters from Mr. Jolly, both are directors of the center. And I won't read them all out loud, but I have highlighted some of them. So this may be helpful, Peter, to you. Just give me a minute to get this up.
the other thing I wanted to add to your point, Peter, when you said about paragraph number 21, ECC did look at once they, I guess, I can't remember exact sequence, but once they ceased operations, there were people who approached them. We did too for DCPS, right, with the overcrowding issue for pre-K. And there were others that wanted to develop that vacant property. So in political science terms, we have to look at reversion points, which that just means that you can't compare the Maret application with existing, because existing isn't going to go all the way into the future. So this is really critical. This is just like how to approach this issue. So of course, now when we look at Maret, we're looking at what's the difference between existing and Maret. But when you just look at Maret, you can't think that if this doesn't pass, that ECC, as you've said, Peter, and as we said in the draft resolution, they will look at other means of providing support so that they can restart their program. And it can't be compared to like that space may not look like that space.
Okay.
There may be other opportunities.
Just to underscore Connie's point, and this is from a letter of Bill Simon, who's on the board of the center.
He's chair actually of the board, I think.
Yeah. Okay. He talks about how they had to pause for a while. And when they did, quote, "When word got out that we had paused operations, we were approached with many offers to buy or lease our property. All of these plans would have been far more disruptive to the neighborhood than a sports field." Then he concludes at the end that two things are certain. ECC will not be deterred from our longstanding mission of helping special needs children. Change will come to our open land in one form or another. We cannot afford to have it remain as is. That's a pretty, I think, definitive statement as to the center's position. I also have a letter from Mr. Jolly on our board, and I have a very nice note from one of the former students. I don't know if we want to get into reading all of those verbatim right now, but at some point that might be relevant.
So in effect, that there are two important points under this heading, which is that we think, and we have heard from ECC folks, including Stephanie Nash, that the Maret deal provides the resources for them to rekindle their operation. And two, that the center board is firm in their resolve to restart that operation, so that if the Maret deal goes down, this is their big piece. This is the way they will, one way or the other, finance the return of the operation of the center, right?
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Okay,
With these two letters.
I just want to go on to a few of these other things.
But let me just make one additional point, Peter. As, I don't know, an indication that they're definitely going forward. They are doing work now on renovating and restoring some parts of the building in order to be able to open in September. And so, I mean, they've actually started the work there. So that is in process, and they're clearly planning on and working on opening in September.
And to add to your point, Peter, I don't think when they ceased operations, I don't think any other organization in DC filled that vacuum. So I think the demand is still there, because what we heard was a student. I mean, we've gotten letters from parents whose children have gone to ECC. They've graduated from ECC, and they've said that and I think there was one parent whose child was still at ECC when they ceased operations, who then had to drive those 2 hours a day. They had to drive their kid, and that's very difficult. This is the same kind of logic about why we want to have neighborhood schools, right? Public schools are important because you want to be able to walk there. As parents, we have a lot of things that we're trying to get done, and it's really difficult to just do that back and forth. So the ceasing of operations and the unfilling of that vacuum, I think, is another, it's on the other side of the coin, which is there's a demand still. And
look, I
for
want
this
to be
service.
sure that it's clear. I just am trying to raise these points to illustrate and to be sure for myself that under each of these headings, that what the implications are. So under one field or two, the Friends of the Field are very strong on the issue that it should only be one field. My understanding of the design, and given the visual of it, that these fields overlap, these fields definitively can only operate one at a time. So the only way in which this design of this multi-field design increases use is it in some sense extends use over a longer period, because when it isn't football season or soccer season, this field is useful as a baseball diamond, so that it's not that at any time it's increasing the volume of people on the field. It's, to the extent it's increasing volume, it's increasing the time during the course of a year that it can be used. Is that a correct interpretation?
Mostly, I would say that that's certainly true for organized sports. Maret's baseball team can't play at the same time that the football team plays. However, when it's an open field and parents are playing with their children, the additional field space would allow for more playtime. As the single field diagram that the Friends of Fields propose, I think there's less space for soccer players and lacrosse stick users and the like. But principally, Peter, I think you're right that it's a duration issue more than intensity. issue for the organized games.
And it's true that, look, I don't know whether this is true. The open fields period, there are some concern, the Friends have expressed concerns about the open fields period, but in general, some use by the community is something that essentially everybody in this debate has been in favor of, or maybe I'm wrong about that. Randy or John, you've been much closer to this, or Michael, I don't know, any of you. Isn't open fields a more supported element of this, separate and distinct from the issue of 1 versus 2?
What exactly do you mean by open fields?
Non-Maret, non-lessee, that third category that we saw the charts of that Trey Holloway presented.
Right. No, that's an important aspect of this as well, that the community will be able to use that space too, in a way that's going to be hopefully not going to have squatters on the field. You know, we're going to do things to prevent that kind of thing from happening. But yes, there will be a significant amount of community use of the field too.
And Michael, your answer there is that because there's a design of 2 fields, that during this open fields period, there might be incremental increase in use over what there would be were there not one or the other field there. Is that right?
My sense is that if you have a bigger field, a bigger playing area, more people can play in that area. The issue, I think, that the Friends of Fields folks raise is that by shoehorning 2 fields into this space, it moves the perimeter of those playing fields closer to the edges, which means there's less buffer space between the playing field and the neighbors across the alley mostly. That if you had one baseball field or one football field, it could be situated such that there was a little bit more of a buffer. But Maret has indicated that that is not feasible for them. So that's one of the things the resolution says. There's not necessarily going to be the possibility of a negotiated settlement because they're at a complete impasse as to 1 field versus 2 field.
A point that I think it's important for, if there is anybody on this call who's not either on one side or the other or a commissioner, our view, I must say, it seems supported by everything we've received, is that the 2 sides are at an impasse here. That and this is important for us in deciding how we proceed, because the Friends of the Field have asked for a delay. Now, I guess that's now been rejected, but had asked for a delay because the suggestion was that there could be a negotiated settlement. We've certainly tried, and we haven't gotten there. And we don't think that, we think this is going to have to move forward without a full agreement by all parties. Is that correct?
Absent a miracle.
Under the next heading, this extended field use, my only question there is that the Friends of the Fields objected to the intensity of use that Maret proposed originally, both Maret use and lessees. Maret changed its position and reduced the use period in December. Our resolution and what it's filed for embody that reduction in the amount of time that the field can be used. Is that correct?
There's a little bit of a modification that was done in January, and that's incorporated as well, but I think it reduced it a little slightly more. Just made some tinkering around the edges basically, but yes, that's basically the proposal, the reduced proposal that Maret has made.
And can I just ask in that regard, when Maret reduced it, did it also reduce the period that it's the so-called open fields period, the community use period?
No, that got expanded actually.
Okay, so what it reduced was the lessee period?
Yes, and some of its own as well, a little bit of its own.
Okay, again, just quickly moving to this management of stormwater. Does somebody, I mean, other than Maret's engineers saying it so, is there out there an objective standard for 25-year stormwater, management of stormwater to the extent that it can handle a 25-year storm? Or is this something that Maret is saying they're doing, but we don't have any measuring stick to know?
Well, actually, the regulations say 15 years.
I understand.
Not 25.
The debate here is that the regulations say 15 years, the Friends want 50 years, and
Right.
Maret is saying 25. All I'm asking is, in some national, is there some national standard or a Washington Metro standard for 25 years?
I'm not aware of anything except the DC's 15-year standard, which Maret is enhancing by the extra 10 years.
In certain circumstances, I think this was in the materials that DOEE gave us, they can increase that if they conclude that there is a need to. And above the 15 years, it's required in the regulation. They can increase that. So when this gets to permitting, Maret is going to have to satisfy whatever DOEE says at that point. And if they have changed the regulations by then, they'll have to abide by that.
So what you're saying, Randy, is that DOE has indicated to us that it's in the midst of reviewing the issue of how stringent their regulations are.
Right.
So one measuring stick we may have by the time they get to permitting is the city may have decided 25 years or something like that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
In which case that would apply.
Got it. Under transportation management, I wanted to ask just a couple of questions. You said the Public Space Committee acted today. What did they do?
Oh,
They approved the curb cut.
Okay. And they approved the closing of the other curb cut?
Yes, that was part of the package.
It's contingent on their approving the curb cut that Maret has sought.
Sorry, Peter, what's your question?
Approving Maret's curb cut is contingent on closing the other curb cut?
Well, because they're more or less simultaneous. They have proposed that the number of curb cuts along that street will remain the same. One will be closed and one will be open.
Got it. Under preserving or transplanting heritage trees, do the Friends challenge the view that 13 of the, I don't know what the denominator is, 17, 19, 17 heritage trees are not can't survive, or is that a contested terrain?
does who contests that?
Do the Friends contest
Oh.
that the decision both by Maret's arborists, but also I think by the urban forestry division, that 13 of the, you give me the denominator, 19 trees or 17, can't survive.
Not so far as I know.
Okay.
John, are you aware of anything?
No, the Friends have in their package tonight. They have a forestry proposal, which I presume would have that information, but I don't recall that.
I think the only thing
survivability was addressed by the urban forestry person, and he was talking about the fines that they put in and so forth. So there's a motivation to make sure these things work. I'm not sure what the ratio was, though.
Okay, it sounds like there's a real motivation to be sure the things survive. The question was that whether the Friends had challenged anything. Under noise, is there any reason to think that the noise levels at these fields should be different than the noise level at Lafayette? I've been walking by the I'm building up to running again, but I'm not there yet.
That's good, Peter.
Any reason to think that the noise level on these fields will be manifestly different than those at Maret, at Lafayette, which is surrounded by houses, by single-family houses.
Hmm.
Well, it's hard to tell. I don't know what the level, how many people are on the Lafayette fields, for instance, at one time. And I don't think they typically have many spectators. And so from that standpoint, it would be different. I think it's probably more analogous to something like the Georgetown Day School field or the Maret field, for that matter, that's at their campus in Woodley Park. So I think, I mean, it's really a little hard to tell to make that kind of comparison, certainly with Lafayette.
Although it looks very similar, Peter, to my recollection of the Georgetown Day School lower school field off of MacArthur, where around the soccer field is a ring of houses. And some of those houses pre-exist. Some of those were built after, but they're in very close proximity to the field. And
okay,
the other thing I'd note about the photos of the fields that were sent, the 33 photos, of the 33 photos, I think I counted 20 or 22 that were artificial turf fields, and the ones that weren't artificial turf fields were in terrible shape.
and
No.
look at Lafayette today, and every
Sad.
spring, it's a wreck.
Sad.
So it's a wreck.
Yeah, I walked my dog there the other day and she just, I have a mini Bernie doodle. So she rolled in that dirt. I mean, she was so dirty after that. I mean, there's no grass on that field.
Okay, I think
It's very compacted.
I'm finished, except for I want to point out one other thing to anybody who is a member of the general public, which is under the extent of field use. Our resolution includes an encouragement. Frankly, I can't remember how firm we are on this. That if Maret does win approval of this project, that it negotiates the release or an extensive release of its use of the Jelliff field in Upper Georgetown, which has been a bone of contention in that community for some substantial time.
It is stronger than that. They shall negotiate. So, I mean,
and they have also promised they would.
Right, but that's obviously there are two parties to that agreement, so they'll have to negotiate with DPR to release themselves from that agreement. But I think it's important. I think for them to get out of that arrangement with DPR so that they can release the field for use by others.
And I think that's what we were told was why they were searching. And when they saw that this ECC land was available, I think that's why they're so interested in being able to do that. Private parties don't enter into these negotiations seriously unless, there's benefits on both sides. And of course, concessions need to be made too. So that's in our resolution. That is in our resolution, and it is an important thing. And it's after it's built, right? If it gets approved by BZA and after it's built, then we've asked Maret to negotiate. And what paragraph is that on, Randy? We do ask them to report, right? Do we ask them to?
It's in.
How involved are we?
It's in the conditions.
It's in the conditions part, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
I can't put my hand on it right now.
Yeah.
I'm finished. If anybody else wants to.
Okay, Chaz, you want to?
Yes, I would. First of all, I was not with you guys all the way through this since I'm new on the commission, but I have to say I've benefited from all the hard work as I go through this extensive record. I have one more general concern about our role in this that I wanted to mention. That has to do with the stormwater 25-year requirement. I think it's great Maret's agreed to do that, but I'm cautious of us setting regulatory standards that don't exist yet or aren't applicable yet, and us stepping into the place of either the DOE or the council, whoever sets those rules. And so it's a non-issue in this case because Maret's agreed to do it. But if we're looking at future issues like this, I want to make sure we're not stepping in the place of the actual experts and policymakers. We're an advisory body, not a DC policy body.
Well, I would answer that in that Maret's step up to 25 years is voluntary on their part.
I understand. That's why I'm not objecting to it, but I
So I
just
don't think it sets any kind of a regulatory standard. And at any rate, the whole package is going to be viewed by DOE
yes.
as well. So, that's the central place for any kind of a regulation.
Mhm.
And as Randy said, if the regulations change before the project is underway, they will have to meet whatever standards are issued at that time.
That's the only comment I have, Randy. The report and the 33 pages of report and conditions speak for themselves pretty well, I think.
Okay, anything else from commissioners? There are some questions in the chat, and before we get to the comments from attendees, I would propose to go through those for a second, if that's okay with the commissioners. Is that all right?
Are
Yeah,
we tracking
yeah,
questions in the chat or questions in the Q&A?
Q&A,
Are
we're supposed
major
Yeah.
philosophical issues?
to put questions in the Q&A, comments in the chat.
Yeah.
The first one is from Paul Fisher, and I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but basically what he's asking is, what happens if the lease is only for 10 years and that Maret leaves after 10 years? We do have a duration provision in the proposed conditions. And that really was one of the things that it was proposed by Friends of the Field, and we have modified it a bit, but it basically is the same kind of thing. And that what we have said is that as long as this continues to be used as an athletic field, and it's therefore under the jurisdiction of the BZA's order goes with the property. And so if it's continued to be used in this capacity, then the conditions would continue to apply to whoever owns it or operates it. Now, if my understanding is that if ECC at that point decides, no, we're not going to be in the business anymore of taking care of children, we're going to just sell the whole thing, and then it becomes a housing development or something like that, then of course the BZA conditions no longer apply. It's only if it continues to be used as an athletic field, then whoever is going to use it is going to have to abide by those conditions or go to the BZA and ask for modification of the conditions.
Randy,
Okay.
I think
Yeah, go ahead,
that
John.
suggestion actually came from the advisory group.
Sort
of. Okay.
Hard to tell because
Never mind.
there were dissenters.
Randy, just so I asked, part of the weight of Paul Fisher's question is that, if I was skimming it, is that Maret is potentially a short timer. Just on the order of magnitude, I mean, not anywhere an exact figure, but what is the work on this field likely to cost the schools?
Oh, I don't know, a lot. Quite a lot.
Millions.
Millions, yes.
So
They're making a big investment.
Yeah. So while they've signed a 10-year lease with options for 4 10-year renewals, walking away from millions, they're reluctant to walk away from the millions they spent on Jello. So I mean, it isn't a legally binding thing perhaps, but it's a lot of, it's a big sunk cost.
Right. Tom Downs asks,
Randy,
yes, go ahead.
I do. I just want to say something. I think because the video recording, people can't see the Q&A, it's because they don't know when the Q&A is actually being read. I propose that we just read the full question. Don't paraphrase, so that those who may be watching later can understand what we're seeing and then what we're responding to. And I know that takes a little bit more time, but I do think that that's important.
Yeah, it's very
So
long.
can you, so I recommend that you just read Paul's question again, even though we're going to move on to the next one. I'm sorry.
All right.
I think it's important.
All right. I would like to add an additional wrinkle for consideration. If the ANC were to vote to approve this deal going forwards, and Maret vacates the lease after 10 or 20 or 30 years, how is the neighborhood going to be protected from the maintenance of the sports complex being neglected? ECC has gone bankrupt once. That's not accurate. It has not gone bankrupt. It just ceased operations or suspended operations. Has not provided a solid business plan for the resurrection. And the finances of how this field lease to Maret will permanently shore up their finances has not been explained at all. If they succeed in their goal of putting literally tons of toxic artificial turf on the property, this will require regular maintenance and periodic replacement. ECC did not maintain the stormwater protections that were required by the BZA when they built their media center. It was technically illegal for them to do this, but more importantly is what happens if they repeal if they repeat this behavior in the future. Maret has signed a 10-year lease with the option to extend 4 times, so they are only committed for 10 years. There are a whole lot of comments in there that aren't questions, and that's part of the reason why I just paraphrased it, Connie. And but I will read the whole thing then. Okay, and I'll go to the next one, which was from Tom Downs, and I'll read all of this one, which is shorter. The chairman was on the Public Space Committee meeting today, as was John Higgins. They focused on only me, but John was there as well. Thanks for your patience. During the hearing, DDOT employee, a member of the Public Space Committee, mentioned that DDOT has completed a 15-page report on the DDOT transportation response issues raised in the review. I believe he's talking about the comprehensive transportation review. She stated that the report will be released tomorrow. The question is, will the ANC take this report as part of the decision-making process before making a decision? In fact, the DDOT told us when they met with us on the 16th that they would be providing that report this week. I had hoped it was going to be before Friday, but it's in fact on Friday. And yes, we will take that report into consideration in preparing the final draft. We obviously couldn't do it in the draft that we posted, but we will certainly take it into account before we finalize the draft. That's another thing we'll just need to update. Anyone else have anything to add to that? The next question from David Patton is, how many students can be served at what level of payment from Maret School? This is an important question raised by Commissioner Goslin. I think the question was whether how many children at ECC would be supported by the level of payments from Maret. And I think we basically addressed that.
But just to be clear, I mean, I think Stephanie Nash has said that it's something in the order of 20 to 25 as opposed to their pre-suspension 2019 suspension of something like 40 to 45.
I think she said they may be able to ramp up even beyond that later.
Oh, yeah, that's right. To 35. That's right. You're right.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
From former Commissioner Madak, I thought when they ceased operations, that's ECC, it was because of the funding and therefore the supply of students dried up. That's not my understanding. My understanding is that the funding itself was not great enough to continue the work. The students still needed the help, and the students are going to other schools outside the district, having to go, as I think Connie mentioned, a couple of hours away. And so it's not that I think Connie answered this pretty clearly before, that there's plenty of demand out there still. It's just that there wasn't any supply in the district any longer.
Yeah, Randy? I
Yeah,
think Commissioner Gore spoke to that last week. She was at a facility where
right.
a number of these students and parents, and she felt that there would be a significant continuing need.
Exactly. That's a very good point, John. This is an anonymous attendee. Was the ANC ever approached by the ECC to assist them in getting paid by the District Department of Education for the services provided for children referred to ECC? It wasn't a matter of not getting paid. It was the amount that was being paid, the stipend provided by the district was not great enough. And I think that stipend is probably similar to what's being paid elsewhere, but it was not enough to cover the ECC's costs. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Were we approached? I mean, this is before, most of the times, were we approached?
Not
With the previous commission? Yeah.
not to my knowledge. I did have conversations with Stephanie Nash at ECC when they suspended their operations. I don't recall her ever asking for any assistance from the ANC on that. Okay, Bruce Sherman then
I should
asked.
add- Perhaps, Randy, I should add, it's really not, it's sort of collateral to the point, Peter, but when we were looking at Military Road School expansion from Lafayette Pre-K, Commissioner Farabee and I met with Stephanie and the vice chair of the board, I think, to see whether or not we could use the facility, whether DCPS could buy the facility outright, which was rejected by the board. And DCPS said that they could not legally lease the property from ECC on a long-term lease basis. We talked about whether or not we could do something between DCPS and ECC about special needs kids, but that conversation really didn't go any further. And just the ask of whether it was possible once they resumed operations. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay, Bruce Sherman asks Ray, ECC financial viability. Have the commissioners seen the ECC Maret lease? The answer to that is no, as I think Bruce knows. Do you understand the financial terms? And again, no, we do not. And if so, are you assured by the terms or other data you might have separately as to ECC's viability? I think John can chime in on this too, but and others as well. But I think we have trusted the ECC board to be protecting ECC's interests. They are a private entity, and they have a board that is very experienced and has been in operation for a long time. And so we've trusted the board that they have done their due diligence and that they have planned accordingly.
I think there are communications, letters from Mr. Jolly and Mr. Simon pretty much underscore that this is, that the Maret lease will certainly help them be viable for quite some time.
What would happen to the, Bruce also asked, what would happen to the Maret arrangement if ECC were not able to sustain itself and ceased operations permanently? I don't foresee that as being a possibility, really.
What is the status of the lease if the lessor goes bankrupt, for example? So ECC, like, I mean, the weight of the question is ECC went under. Does Maret have a grab on still have a hold on the land, on the property?
I think they have a leasehold, and so that whoever is the successor to ECC would take on the same responsibilities that ECC has with regard to the lease. It's just a matter of law.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Anything else the commissioners want to add? Okay, we're going to turn to the attendees then, and please bear with us as we go through this, because the technology may challenge us a bit. Connie, do you mind if I make you a co-host on this and you can help me on elevating people?
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll help you, Randy.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Did I say it in such a sad?
Yeah,
sad
you
voice?
said, you pathetic soul.
I didn't
Okay.
mean to do that. I'm having trouble with my eyes a little bit because I was on my screen all day. So,
Okay.
but I
if we-
will do it. I will do it.
We've got 3 people who have
Raise their hands.
4
Okay.
now. So
Okay.
you want to make them.
I will
and you can-
elevate them once I get to this attendee spot here. Okay. I will elevate them. I have John Axelrod, Cynthia Collier, Jennifer Butkus, and Elizabeth Commissioner Miller. And I think those are the 4, correct, Randy? We're doing 5 at a time, and we have 4 right now.
We've got 4 now, so that's
So
good.
I did okay. I got them on. Okay.
Yes, it looks like it. Okay, John, you want to go first?
Sure.
And hold on just one second, John, because I am going to time.
And I would like those who are speaking, can you please put your video on? Because when this is recorded, because I've watched a lot of our recordings, they cannot see you. They only hear a voice. They don't even see a box. So they don't see your name.
I don't see a video option.
Well, you're a panelist, so it should be on the bottom left.
I don't.
No, I
see it
have the
either.
mute.
I just have mute too.
No, you should be able to start your video. You're a
Yeah,
panel.
that's right. You're a panelist now, so we all, I can stop video or start video. So you don't see it on the bottom of your
No.
screen?
Nope.
No.
all
We
I
don't
see
have
is-
it.
All I see is mute.
There might be like 3 dots in the upper right.
Yeah, if you hover around your photo, around the square, you'll see mute, and then you'll see the 3 dots. Can you?
I don't see my
Um,
photo. I just see you guys.
She means your box, the box that has your name in it.
I don't
Yeah.
see that either.
We don't have that.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay,
Excuse me.
fine.
What
The
you
way it
did,
is.
Connie, you didn't change their role to panelist, I think. You gave them
Okay.
audio, but you didn't make them panelists. And I'm
So
going
should
to
can you do
I'll
that
do-
then?
let me do.
I will learn the next time around. Yeah, I just allowed them to talk. Sorry, everyone. I'm glad that we
Okay.
figured that out.
I think I've got it now.
There you are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah. You can't speak that way to Randy anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Randy.
All right. Okay, John, now you're
So
on.
yes, I live on Rittenhouse Street and have lived on Rittenhouse Street for a number of years. I also filed the Friends of the Field statement this afternoon, and I appreciate your delaying the actual vote to have a chance to study the material we submitted. I'd like to address something that's not in our statement. On page 17 of the resolution, there's the creation of a task force that includes representatives from 28th Street, Nebraska Avenue, Utah Avenue, and Rittenhouse Street, and some other people. But it says that the task force members will be appointed by the ANC. I'd like to request that that be amended so that the members, for example, from 28th Street would be appointed or elected from the people on 28th Street. The same would be true for the people on Nebraska Avenue, Utah Avenue, and Rittenhouse Street. We're all for democracy in the District of Columbia, and I think there should be democracy in the appointment of the task force. The task force has certain roles in the
construction and management of the field. And I think it's only fair that the residents have the right to vote on who the representatives are in the task force. So thank you.
Okay, Cynthia?
Just a point of clarity in the wording you use in the resolution. At points you refer to Maret designing for a 25-year storm. You may wish to define whether or not that definition of 25-year storm will change if DC changes its definition of 25-year storm, or whether you are only going to hold them to the standard of 25-year storm as defined at the time the resolution is submitted.
I think it would apply, I mean, just to answer that one little question, it will apply whatever the standard is when the permit is issued.
So
we
if
can-
the
clarify
25-year
that.
definition changes?
Yes, we could clarify that and make absolutely sure, but that was our intent.
Cynthia,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
research.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Miller.
Hey, everybody, great to see you. Randy and all of the commissioners, I want to thank you for your work on this zoning issue. Being an ANC commissioner myself, I know just how much time and negotiation and collaboration that goes into a resolution like this. And I've never seen a 33-page resolution, so congratulations on that. In particular, I'd like to speak in support of the condition that Maret negotiate with DPR to end its agreement for use of the Jella field effective when the ECC project is complete. As you know, full-size regulation fields in Northwest DC are in extremely high demand. When the contract between DPR and Maret was up in 2019, over 10 schools voiced their desire for some time on the field. The contract was extended and Maret has 100% of the most in-demand after-school hours on that field, almost 20 years of exclusive use on a public field during after-school hours in the spring and fall when it is most desired. In fact, last September 21st, Maret had a girls varsity home game on the public Jella field, while the Hardy boys soccer team had a home game at Randall Field, which required getting on a bus and navigating a freeway to Southwest DC. I have listened to the meetings and transcribed all the Q&A, and Maret won't directly answer whether they plan to relinquish the Jella contract after their new field is developed. I'm really hopeful the condition you placed on your support of their BZA application will encourage them to do so, and the fields can be shared more equitably. Lastly, just kind of a quick question. I'm wondering, there is a last sentence that says Maret shall report to ANC 34G and ANC 2E on its efforts to negotiate an expeditious end to the Jella field agreement with DPR. I'm wondering how you see follow through happening with that. You don't need to answer right away, but those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. We really appreciate the work you've been doing too, in your ANC. It's been very significant. Jenny Bacchus.
Thanks, Commissioner. I am Jenny Bacchus. I live directly across from the site of the new field at 5841 Nebraska Avenue. I want to speak first to thank my own commissioner, John Higgins, and all of you for the incredible amount of work that you have done on this in the neighborhood. I have different opinions than some of my neighbors, but as someone who I think I support the resolution, but I really just appreciate all the time that you've taken to talk to all of us on the street and all the meetings that you've gone to. So that's the first thing I want to say. Quickly on the resolution. I really appreciate the community hours. I want to thank you for setting up a formal process. Many of us who've lived across from the ECC, and we understand because ECC didn't have a lot of resources, but have looked at that field and wanted to go over there and played and felt guilty about going over and with the trespassing sign. So the advocacy for the community time is really appreciated. I am a little sad as a mom of someone who played Cap City, Jellif at that time, DC soccer, flag football. He did everything. That I am a little sad that there's not more hours for the DC youth sports leagues. I really think it's wonderful to walk by Lafayette and see all the kids out there at the baseball games. I think, and I noticed there's not a lot of use on the weekends. I appreciate that we had to make some, that you guys had to make some real compromises with the neighbors and in this process, but I'm hopeful. I really think that you've set a good precedent for us working, and if this does get approved, which I really hope it does, moving forward, I think you set up a really good process for community input, and hopefully we'll all be at a point when we can get some more use for the DC youth sports teams on that field, even though my kid will probably be off and gone. It is really nice to see all the kids out there practicing and running around. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, I think that's all the people we recognized initially. Is that right, Connie?
I think
Okay,
so. We
we
got
can
them. Yeah, we
them
could.
as attendees.
Okay. Are you doing that, Randy, since I failed?
Why don't you go ahead? While I'm looking, who's got their hands?
There are 4 new ones. I mean,
Yeah.
there's Claudia Russell, Cheryl Wasserman, Bruce Sturman, and Colleen.
I'll start making those panelists.
Oh, no, I'm not moving.
Randy, as a process matter, if we had a question for a panelist, which I didn't, but if we do, when do we ask the questions of panelists? At the very end or at?
Yeah, at the end, I should have done that, ask the commissioners if they had questions, but yes, that would be an appropriate time.
At the end of each panel, you mean?
Yeah, at the end of
Yeah.
each panel.
Okay.
Am I supposed to speak?
Well, just one second, Cheryl, and
Sorry.
we'll recognize you. That's okay.
Sorry, I'm also learning because I'm never co-host on this, so I'm trying to do my best here too.
You're doing great.
And John, sorry.
So Cheryl Wasserman, I want you to know, as a person who appears regularly on CNN, there's an organization called Room Rater, and it gives you a rating of your background when you're on TV. Up to 1 out of 10, 0 out of 10. I'm betting that you'd get at least 9 out of 10 for that background with all the tchotchkes and the books and everything. So if you get invited to go on television, use that background, you get a very good rating on Room Rater.
And I aspire to being less cluttered, but I can't depart with anything. I can't retire, I can't leave.
The thing to do then is to drop that as an aspiration.
Okay. All right. Cheryl, you want to begin now?
I'm just bowled over as somebody who's been involved with public policy and outreach and environmental issues and all that. I just want to compliment the ANC, and I'm so proud to be part of this community and the way this whole thing was handled. The outreach, I think it's a model. All the work that went into your document and the decisions, I've never seen any. It just be well beyond any expectations I had, and I have nothing more to say. I just think it deserved at least a little FaceTime thanking you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, Claudia.
Hi, good evening. This is something I put in the Q&A, but it wasn't met. You cut it off early, I guess. So I'm going to repeat it here because it's something that really concerns me and I think would concern others. The ECC did have a covenant, which was dated 9/17, 2002 for the Corps Media Center to maintain an infiltration pit located just east of the Media Center, required by the DC Health Department as part of the agreement to go ahead, BZA agreement. It required an annual inspection of the observation well, the inlet manhole, with requirements for maintenance as well. However, Brian Rule of VICA on the 31st of January said that the ECC did not maintain the tank because they didn't have the money. Our concern is if Maret does not renew the lease and ECC must maintain this very sophisticated man-made stormwater management system, who will maintain it and protect us? And how can we be assured that this system will be maintained? Because as Brian Rule pointed out once again in that meeting, they have a 9-inch curb around the football field to prevent water, if it rises too high, from spilling over, and to channel it. So the concern is that there's a lot of water management and it needs to be managed very well. And can we be assured that it will be, given the number of shareholders in this operation?
Okay, Bruce.
So I'd like to refer specifically to paragraph 33 in the ANC's draft resolution regarding future traffic conditions. And the comment in that paragraph that Maret did not make adjustments to reflect the imminent reopening of Oregon Avenue after having been closed for several years, or the National Park Service's possible continuation of pandemic-related closures of Beach Drive. And as Chair Speck knows, and the other commissioners, I think, understand, Friends of the Field has provided the commission with a detailed assessment of the comprehensive transportation review that Wells and Associates prepared for Maret. We've indicated the concern about the fact that the assessment of the reopening of Oregon Avenue and the resumption of commuter cut-through traffic, which, as I understand it, in terms of actual numbers of vehicles on a daily basis pre-pandemic, ran in the neighborhood of 7,000 per day or 7,800 per day. And one might assume that that traffic would resume close to, if not exceeding those numbers in the future. So the question is, how can the commission factor this in its assessment of the impacts of the additional traffic, the additional parking, the additional congestion on Nebraska that the use of the facility by Maret and other sports organizations, as well as ECC, will have, given the fact that this has not been studied. And as we understand it, and we could be wrong, when DDOT issues its final report, they too have not taken this into account. I believe the presentation last Wednesday by the DDOT representative indicated that they had not studied it. They had a narrower scope of study for their review. So I live on Nebraska with my wife, and we're very concerned as immediate neighbors about the volume of traffic and then the congestion that's going to ensue as a result of the proposed development by Maret. So the question is, how does the ANC understand this?
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. Okay, the last one is Colleen. Do you want to start your video too, Colleen?
All right, great. There we go. Oops. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Colleen Crino, and I want to thank this ANC team for its really thoughtful support of the requirement to negotiate the closure of the JELF lease with this new ECC lease. I'm a DCPS parent with a graduating 8th grader at Hardy Middle and a rising 6th grader, and I'm also a member of the Hardy PTO. My 8th grader had the chance to play sports on the JELF field, which is across the street from Hardy, but I'm hoping that my now 5th grader, who is not yet at Hardy, will have that opportunity. This would require that JELF is fully available to our DCPS students and community before the fall of 2024, even though the current lease that Maret holds extends through 2029. So I'm in favor of this condition, and I very much appreciate your support to the agreement to allow fair usage of these public resources at JELF as soon as Maret has the opportunity to begin using the ECC resources. And I'm very grateful for the ANC's support of our DCPS students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner, questions for any of these panelists? I had one question for Claudia. Can you just describe a little bit more, Claudia, about the this tank? I'm not very familiar with that. And where is it located, and what does it contain, and what's been the problem with the lack of maintenance?
Okay, we sent that to you in what John sent today, I believe.
Oh,
if not, I can send you the resolution and the covenant required. It was for water, and it was to be maintained every year. And I can't tell you more than that, other than when I mentioned it to Brian Rule, when we had one of the office hours, I asked him if that would be absorbed in the new VICA plan. And he said yes. And then he talked about it not work. It hadn't been checked. It wasn't working, and that they were going to take it out and not to worry. And it just was a little alarming that what he said suggests that there was a little less than diligent due diligence on maintaining a tank that affects neighbors.
Where is the tank located?
You can see it has two big white pipes coming out of the ground, and it's just east of the media building, kind of next to the backstop.
When we walked the space.
I remember those.
You remember those as we went up?
Yeah.
It rises and just before the rise up to the Rittenhouse side of the field, there are actually several what seem to be venting pipes or pipes that come quite high off the ground. And then there looks like is there a manhole, Claudia? There's something at kind of ground level too. So.
There probably is a manhole so they can get into it. I have to say I hadn't really looked at the manhole. I've seen the white pipes because I can see them out my kitchen window. But it's alarming that we have a system that has to be maintained. And we do have some, at least evidence from what Brian said, that it hadn't. And it's a lot of water that's being worked through in this new design.
I would appreciate if you would send me the documents that you had on that. So that
I'll be glad to.
And I also will inquire about this and see if we can understand it a little bit better.
Okay.
I saw those white pipes and I remember asking somebody about them and nobody knew. So
that may explain it, that they didn't know about what they needed to do.
Right.
But I'll forward it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions commissioners have? Michael?
I can't remember our conditions, but do we have anything in our conditions that were Maret to relinquish its lease prior to the 50 years that ECC commit or somebody commit that the next lessor maintain the field if they're going to continue to use the field?
Yes, we do have something in there. It's in the duration clause, I think at the very end. Yeah. I think it's section 7 of the conditions.
Right. There's no guarantee, hypothetically, we're Maret to give this up in 20 years, and ECC says, well, fine, we're gonna sell off the property and we'll make it affordable housing, and they'll just tear up the whole field, and there won't be this worry about artificial turf. There'll just be more complaints about housing. So,
right.
Okay, thanks.
Randy,
Yeah.
it seems like, I mean, this is definitely a legitimate concern about maintenance, right? And about past history and so forth. Is it possible to put in the conditions some kind of like asking ECC, the board, to consider some kind of like, I don't know what the legal term is, like it's not a retainer, but it's like a bucket of money. You know, banks do this, right? It's like an insurance, you know, you set aside a bucket of money. Oh, that's it. Yeah, I just couldn't get the word out right. It's right, exactly. Thank you, Cheryl. Some kind of escrow account that can cover maintenance for whatever, a year or 2 years or some number of years, so that if something should happen, they could access that money. That money is just put there for this purpose, for maintenance of the field. While you go through any kind of transition, if Maret, I think in the chat said that they would, you know, they want to honor this long-term lease, but what if something happened and they couldn't renew, and ECC had to find someone new, or if ECC themselves went through something? I think it is important for us to think about that and maybe put that in.
Can I mention something then? I mean, I'm not Maret. I'm just thinking about this as one. I think a continuing responsibility is good practice. They're spending so much money, investing so much money up front, and you're talking about maintenance. I would think that that kind of thing might go into effect when it's operational, or, you know, when they're, it if they have to put up a lot of money up front before it's a maintenance issue, that might be problematic. So just so it's
I
just.
think there's two different, one is Maret and one is ECC. So I think based on what Claudia was saying, I was referring really to ECC and their responsibility on anything that they do. But Claudia, that media center would be a part of Maret. So that might be a different kind of solution. So I think what we should first do is just look at the documents so we have some understanding of it. And then we could just figure out if there should be another proposed condition.
Thank you. I think the escrow account makes a lot of sense to cover any maintenance whenever there's sort of something that is not covered during a transition time. So,
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we should think about that.
Okay, any other questions for this panel?
Well, Randy, I have another question for us generally. Bruce raises the question about the study of volumes of traffic
Right.
going forward. And I just want to make sure that we feel that we've addressed that, or that DDOT will address that as they work through this. It's a legitimate concern, and I just want to see where we have come out on that exactly.
I believe that will be addressed in DDOT's report tomorrow. I recall too that this question was asked of Maret, the Wells study, and I believe it was in one of the office hours that they held. And their response was that they built in a great deal of conservatism in their analysis, and that they thought that that conservatism was sufficient to be able to account for any increase in traffic that might occur as a result of opening Oregon Avenue again. Because after all, they did, and I guess they didn't include, when they went back to 2017, that Oregon Avenue had probably been closed at that point. But they thought that they had built in sufficient conservatism, and we'll just see what DDOT says about that.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, you're shaking your head. You're making a face.
Well, we don't understand. We don't understand that was, no, we don't understand that was the case from the DDOT representative's comments last Wednesday. He defined the area of study, and the area of study did not include Oregon Avenue. We asked about it then. My question is to the commission, not to whether or not DDOT is going to present something, and that is, given your draft resolution and your intention to support the proposal, without this critical aspect of the traffic volumes on Nebraska being factored into the consideration, what kind of weight do you give that? That's really my question to you, the commissioners.
Okay.
It's 7,000 cars a day, not having been factored into the study. That strikes someone who lives on Nebraska as a serious omission.
Okay. Let's see, we've got, I think, only one more person who has raised their hand.
That was
why don't
Molly
we-
Bryant. She seems to have left.
Molly Bryant.
Wait, she still has her, do
has
we
her-
want to bring her in now? Do we want to, I thought you were doing panel, so I was gonna.
Yeah, we were, but she's the only one
Still
left.
here.
So
Yeah. No, she's here.
Okie dokie. I will
I think we can-
promote her to panelist. I did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Yes,
Molly,
yes.
we could hear you. Can you put your video on, please?
Can I put my what on?
Video.
Oh, how do I do that? Okay, put it on there. Hold on. I'm going to put it on there.
They need to see you
Okay,
face.
so let me see. Hello, I'm trying to put the video on, man. Hold
Okay,
on.
it's
I'm trying
okay.
to put it on.
Yeah, we're waiting
Is
for
it a
you.
button?
It's
Is it a
okay.
button I need to push? It
I don't
says
know if you're
join-
using your phone or what, but like if you could see your square, it's the 3 dots. You could put your video on. 3
Oh, I
dots on
think
the
I see it.
top
Hold on.
right.
Let me see if this is it. Hold on. Elite, not join, cancel. Okay, I think this is it right here. Is that it? Is that it?
Nope.
No.
Okay, hold
Just
on.
talk.
I'm
It's
trying-
okay.
I really want to be on here tonight. I really do, but I'm not really computer savvy. So I'm trying to see what do I push? Like it's a little person up in the corner. Push that.
There's
Let me
like
see.
it on the right.
Can you hear me now?
We
We
can
can hear you fine. We hear
Oh
you
my
fine.
God, what am I doing? Okay, did I do it now?
No, why don't you
Okay,
just ask your
hello?
question?
Go
You
ahead.
didn't do it,
Video.
but
You
just
can
go
just
ahead.
go ahead.
It's okay.
That's fine.
Go
Just
ahead,
go ahead,
Molly.
Molly.
Oh no, did she mute herself?
No, I don't think so. Molly, come back and talk to us.
Oh no.
I think Molly is a parent, an ex-ECC
Yes.
parent, if I remember correctly.
I think that's right.
Yeah, yeah. So Molly, can you hear us?
If she can't let us know.
Yeah.
Oops.
I think the call dropped. So if she comes back, I'll promote her. I'll try to promote her again. I'm sorry.
Well, in the meantime, why don't I go back to the Q&A? There are a few
Yes.
questions there that were
Yes.
asked.
Why don't you do that? Mhm.
Claudia's question related to the same thing that she talked about when she was a panelist. So that one is done.
Okay.
JP Dowd says, Bruce and Jane, didn't you and other neighbors previously indicate in other meetings that you strongly support ECC and are doing so with financial support? Well, that was for some of the panelists, some of the attendees became panelists, I think, not for us. Terry Rosenhack says the well study undercounts traffic from Oregon Avenue. Does the ANC expect that the 100-foot PUDO will absorb the queuing at rivalry games from 100 cars converging without impacting flow on Nebraska Avenue? I'm not sure what PUDO stands for. Does anyone else know?
I don't know what that is.
Carrie, can you enlighten us? Pick up and drop off.
Oh,
Okay.
yay. Molly is good. Molly, we could see you.
Okay.
What is it?
Molly,
Yes.
can we hear?
And see, but can't hear.
Molly, we can't hear you yet. We see you, but we can't hear you.
One or the other.
Oh, these technical difficulties are just. Maybe I could unmute her. Can I do that?
She's not muted. She's not muted.
Oh,
If it's any consolation, the Public Space Committee was having trouble today with their technology as well. So we're not the only 2 years into the
Molly. Yeah, I know. Molly. Oh, she's connecting to audio, so she's trying to connect.
did not connect.
Hmm.
Well, Molly continues to persevere. Let's, I'll go ahead and ask this last question. This is about, does the ANC expect that the 100-foot pickup and drop off will absorb the queuing at rivalry games? That's the pickup and drop off spot on Nebraska. And I think this has been, well, it's been accounted for, but I guess it's the same question that Bruce Sherman was raising about whether Oregon Avenue has been adequately considered in this process. And I think.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Jesus.
Okay.
This is the thing. Let me tell you something. I mean, I am really for this resolution, and I just really think it is in the best interest for ECC to reopen because it has worked a miracle for my Sunday Quan. He is a senior now. He's doing exceptionally well. And he talks about ECC all the time in reference to the change that it made in his life. And not only that, he has made the best friendship with someone else from ECC that they've been knowing each other since 4th grade, and they are still the best of friends, and they connected with each other because they were like one another and they were able to understand each other. I mean, I can only speak from my heart. I don't know a lot of the things that you guys know, but I can only speak from my heart. ECC, I've never, ever met a school like ECC as far as the type, what it brings to the table for families who have children with special needs. And I know I only have 2 minutes, but I'm just saying, I have another child who's 8, and she may have to wind up going to the same type of school that Daquan went to. And I want to make sure that there's a school in our neighborhood, because I live right on Utah. And I want to make sure that there's a school, because my son right now is being bused all the way to Virginia, Annandale, Virginia, because there's no school, high school in DC that fits his needs. And I can't say no more than that. I truly loved ECC. They were remarkable. And I just think that they need more schools out here like that for children, because these children really need a way to be able to be successful in life, and people who really care about them and love them and not going to just treat them indifferently. So I just have to say that. And I wanted to get on. Sorry, I'm not computer savvy, so it was really hard for me to get on, but I really wanted to get on to voice my opinion in reference to that.
Thank you very much, Molly. We appreciate your hard work getting on the video and the audio at the same time. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Oh, and I wanted to say also that in reference to ECC not having enough money for certain things they need or whatever, guess what? Where there's a will, there's a way. And something will be able to be made if ECC is able to be reopened, because I just have that faith. I really have that faith in a mustard seed. And I think that they will be able to get whatever they need if they can reopen, because they have those children's best interests at heart.
Okay.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay. There's no one else who has a hand raised, and so I think we're done for the evening. John?
David, I will follow up with Cynthia. I know you had an earlier question about that. I'll get to her and get back to you.
Okay. I think that's everything we need to do for this evening. Then we're going to have some work ahead of us.
Randy, before we close, are we open to written comments still from people?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know whether I mentioned that earlier, but absolutely. If anyone has any written comments, they certainly can send them to us. The sooner the better, because we're going to be working very diligently to try to get this done by Sunday, hopefully, so that we can have the final resolution and conditions posted on our website before our meeting on Monday night. And we're not expecting to make any changes at that meeting. We'll just discuss what changes we made, and then we'll have a vote. Okay. Anything else from commissioners?
No,
right.
just really a thank you for everyone who showed up. There were many people here tonight.
Yep, we had a good turnout and we had good participation. We appreciate it. Okay, thank you all. Connie,
Okay,
you got Q&A?
I saved the Q&A, and I just give us a second before you. I mean, people should go off now, but I want people to stop on the chat so that we could save the chat, because I upload that too. So
okay,
yeah. So good night, everyone.
Good night.
Goodbye, commissioners. See you again.
Monday night.
And I guess, Randy, you could stop recording so that Peter doesn't have to process everything.
I will do that.
Send me the tape.